Maybe we can talk about alternative business funding, as I see Patrick is online, our guest. So Patrick Kedziora will be your professor for this course, and I invite him to pitch his course.
I come to teach because I just love sharing my experience. I've had 3 careers to date. First, as a banker on Wall Street in New York, where I spent and lived most of my life. Secondly, as a chief financial officer and chief operating officer of public and private companies. And my third career has been as an entrepreneur. So I've raised anywhere from and been involved in deals from as small as $1 million, which to me is small, to well over $5 billion. So I've been there, I've done that. I have to say that in today's marketplace, there's an awful lot of money out there, awful lot of money. It's looking for the new startups, and people are looking for deals. We may be at home wearing masks, but money is still going around the world. So this is nothing stopped. Nothing has stopped in the realm of money. People are still taking meetings. They're just happening on Zoom. They've changed perhaps what they're looking for a little bit. They want to see if there's maybe more social distancing type of applications that they might be able to invest in. But the general mood out there is, hey, let's do some business. So don't let this COVID situation stop you from looking at whether it's careers in finance or finding out more about finance, because this is just a new way of doing business. Matter of fact, for me, it isn't all that new. I've been doing business online remotely from different places in the world now for well over 10 years. So, you just have to get used to it. It's not always fun, but you make it as part of your normal life, and before you know it, you actually get to see the benefits of not having to travel as much and being able to very quickly go from one task to another. So, if I have you in one of my classes, it'll be my pleasure to share with you my experience, both the positives as well as the negatives, because that's what experience to me is. It's an accumulation of all the mistakes that you've made, and I've certainly made more than a few. But it doesn't stop me from going forward. Anyway, I wish you all good health and all the success in your courses and in your career. And you can find out more about me at my website, boilingice.com, or in French, glacebouillante.com. So nice to see you all here.
Thank you so much. Which has been your favorite of your 3 careers and why? Question from John.
Oh, yeah. I love being a banker. I just love it. It's extremely exciting. It's almost like an addiction. You go from deal to deal. You work crazy hours, but there's something that's really exciting when you're working on these. I worked on a lot of mega deals. KKR, Cobo Kravis Suarez was my personal client. So I got to see the world from what's called the 10,000 foot level. And it was really just wonderful. I wasn't too crazy about being a CFO. A CFO depends the kind of company you work for. A CFO can be either a bean counter or an accounting type. And although I'm okay with accounting, I don't like counting beans. I like making beans. I like making money. I'd say about 10% of the positions as CFO are strategic CFOs, and 90% of them are accounting CFOs. So the accounting role is less interesting. The strategic role is extremely interesting. But by far, the most exciting has been being an entrepreneur. Not necessarily the most lucrative, certainly not up until now, but I tell you, there's nothing like, at least for me, getting up in the morning and saying, it's like going hunting. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but you gotta make something happen, and you need to depend. You can only depend on yourself to make it happen. When you get up, you go to a job, you're gonna get a salary at the end of the week, right? So you go home, go to sleep, you know that you're gonna make money. When you're an entrepreneur, you don't know what's gonna happen. The money that you make is strictly dependent upon the effort that you put in, and it's not just effort. Sometimes it's somewhere a little bit of luck, and you learn. You learn over time. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy, and I'm not sure it's necessarily for everyone. But everyone does need to start thinking like an entrepreneur because the world is changing. It's changing very fast. It's not because of COVID. It was changing before. If you look at what's happening in the U.S., it's not unusual for U.S. college graduates to have 1, 2, or 3 jobs. It's very much a gig economy. The gig economy is already started in Europe. It's only going to continue. And the opportunities, I think, are with smaller, innovative companies. And large companies are going to have to learn to adapt. So if you want a job in a large company, that's great. But I think that you're going to also need to think in terms of being innovative and entrepreneurial and thinking out of the box. So start now, learn the skills. It doesn't matter what you do, you'll be in a good position.
Thanks, Patrick. That was really, really interesting. And I was actually just typing it up here, but I feel I just say it. I love your enthusiasm and your interest and your love for your job. It's really infectious. So first of all, thanks for that. And I just had a quick follow-up. So out of all your 3 careers, all 3 of them sound equally interesting for various different reasons. But what has been your biggest mistake or failure along the way? And what did you, how do you recover from it? And what did you learn from it that you were able to apply in a later situation?
Thank you so much for this amazing question.
No worries. I'm very interested to hear.
That's a great question. I'm thinking back on the 3 careers, and I think they've all had their ups and their particular hiccups. I'd say that when I was a banker, I don't always believe what your boss is telling you about. Oh, don't worry, we'll take care of you. We love you. Companies, the bottom line, and you've got to really look out for yourself. So don't believe everything that somebody tells you. As a CFO, I probably I was a CFO for about maybe a dozen or so years. I knew the minute I became a CFO that I really wasn't too keen on it. I really like the excitement of things moving forward. I don't want to say deals, but when companies are really doing things, if you're just sitting in the office, kind of taking care of the administrative part, to me that's less exciting. So I probably should have moved on a bit faster than I did, but it is what it is. And as an entrepreneur, the biggest, there's no right or wrong. It's my answer. Your answer could be completely different. But there's 2 ways of starting a business. One is you get out of the shower and you go, hey, I got a great idea, and then you go out and you try to do it, and then you find out that you have no customers. And that used to be the way that I used to think. I had these great ideas, because ideas are they have no value. The only thing that has value is execution and getting things done. And I no longer fall in love with ideas. What I do fall in love with is I fall in love with markets, customers, and problems. If there's a problem out there and you can identify the customers and you can come up with a solution, then you've got a faster, better chance of coming up with a business that's going to be real, that's going to make money. But, the guy that started Twitter, they didn't one day say, what's the problem, in the world? The world needs really the ability to send out a lot of gossip and junk texts and pictures, right? No, that wasn't the problem they were trying to solve. They had simply developed something that they used internally, that they used as a way to chat amongst themselves, and they decided to test it out in the market. And they were able to test it very quickly, and in the first week they had over 100,000 users, which is incredible validation. But most entrepreneurs don't get that validation on an idea within the first week. It might take them, several years before they realize, oh my God, there's no customer for this. And that's the lesson that I try to pass on, is try to minimize the amount of time between the idea that you have and that magical, product market fit. You really need the product market fit, the minimum viable product. The fastest way to get that is solve a problem. So that's what I've learned. And I'm still learning. So it's a lifelong process.
That's brilliant, Patrick. Thanks very much. Yeah, that as soon as you started talking about markets and customers and solving, an actual problem, that was the first phrase or whatever buzzword that popped into my head, was product market fit. Yeah, it's obviously really interesting just to hear your own personal experience from it, because you can, you read about it in a book, but I've done a little bit of startup competitions myself, but it's obviously no comparison at all to the real thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting to hear your take on that. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You got to get out of the building, as Steve Blank says.
Yeah, Steve Blank. Yeah, what am I? And thank you very much. Anyway, appreciate your input.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sorry, what is the best profile to get a private equity job, according to Patrick? So this is a question to Patrick. Thank you so much, Patrick.
I'll tell you, getting a PE job, and just like going to work for a VC, is one of the hardest things you can possibly do. Both of those are very much invitation-only clubs. So if you've worked as an intern at a PE firm or VC firm and they liked you, you're very likely to be offered a more permanent position. If they didn't like you, of course, nothing's going to happen. The other way to get a job at any one of those is for them to get to know you. Maybe you bring a deal to a PE firm and they really like the way that you handle yourself, or you bring a VC has gotten to know you because you worked at a startup and you were maybe one of the founders, or you were somehow involved in the startup. You effectively, you've got to bring value to either one of those types of environments. Matter of fact, you need to bring value to any kind of job. But with a PE and a VC firm, they want to really see the value, right? The CV is not going to demonstrate value. What's going to demonstrate value is you either bringing something to them or them getting to know you. So it's really critical that you start that process yesterday. Right? Don't wait, and you really, really need to put in a great deal of effort, because the competition is incredibly intense for a very simple reason. That if you go and work for any one of those firms, you're really guaranteed almost to become a millionaire within the next 10 years. So, that's a lot of competition.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for all the precious answers.